Okay, I want to thank everybody for taking the time out to join us on our webinar to introduce Axiom Elite to our existing Axiom Legacy clients. If you have any questions, feel free to send them to me, and I will, through the chat window and WebEx, and I will address all the questions at the end of the presentation. I want to thank you all first and foremost for being long-term Axiom clients. Much appreciated, and we have some exciting things in store that we want to share with you about what Axiom Elite is and everything that you can do with it. I am Joanne O'Connor. I'm the Axiom Product Manager. Some of you may know me. Some of you may not know me as well. But I oversee the team with Dave and Nate and Eric and all the folks that you usually interact with. So let's get started and show you what Axiom Elite is all about. So quick introduction to Elite. It is the successor to Axiom. It is a brand new product. We have built it to really, what we really wanted to do was make this more of a flexible ETL tool and an extract, transform, and load tool, but an ETL tool that differs from others, kind of on steroids, where it has matching and it has a UI for the matching, as you're all familiar with, but it also has capability to do more complex business logic, where your typical ETLs can do the data translations, crosswalks of states from one system to another, for instance. But in Axiom, we're bringing in all those legacy features that really make it a differentiator in the ETL market. And we want to be in the higher ed space. We've always been in the higher ed space, and this is for higher ed. Axiom's always been for higher ed. Axiom Elite also allows us to be database agnostic. So for so long, we were a one-way ticket into Banner. If you didn't have Banner and Oracle backend, we couldn't talk to you. Axiom Elite allows us to look at SQL instances, and we have colleague clients now in Power Campuses. And what it also does is it opens up other systems on campus that we can talk to and integrate data through. And we'll get to that when we talk a little bit about how we want to really be a data integration hub. In Elite, we can actually now build and maintain crosswalks. So some of you may have had difficulties with curriculum data or something else that required us to build a custom table to handle the translation. In Elite, we now have the capability to hold those crosswalks in Elite and have provided a nice UI that I'll show you for you to be able to adjust those values as well as they change, since curriculum and things like that we're translating do usually change over the course of time. We also are bidirectional. So before we needed we needed a file output from a third party, whether that be Slate or Common App or one of those providers, and we would load that data into Banner. We now have capability to say, let's run a query in Banner and let's update that other system on the outside, whether that's a CRM or an LMS. The bidirectional movement allows us to move data either way that you need it to move from system to system. We can also, with Axiom, we had one connection, and we talked to Oracle, that allowed us to do everything we need to do in Banner. With Elite, it's really cool that we get to be able to define connections in Elite beyond the host connection. So if we want to think about our typical connection to Banner and where our schema lives and where our data lives, that's, all of that is our host connection. We would define that as our host connection, and then we can then establish different connections to other databases so that we can talk to these other databases and move data back and forth. The other thing that we're really working into Axiom Elite is API integration. So anybody who's integrating anything from Salesforce, we have an active working direct API integration to Salesforce. And that takes out any type of file output needed, and we can just move data from one database to the other. All of these pieces have been added to Elite so that we can become our vision of a data integration hub on campus, so that we can really move data between all your systems. And when we talk about a data integration hub, this is our vision, where Axiom Elite sits on campus, and regardless of the system that we're starting with and the system that we're ending with, we can move data between the systems. So whether that's between the LMS and the SIS, or a CRM and the SAS, whatever it may be that you have on campus, we've talked to some CIOs, and we see some very large diagrams of 30-plus processes of data moving between systems. And Axiom Elite can now do that all through one friendly user interface. That way, when your IT folks are trying to build an integration, they have one place to go, one piece of software to handle it through. And when Tom and Don retire, Jeff doesn't have to go and figure out what Tom and Don did in their code. It's all in one easy user interface for you. So our vision is to really be this data management hub on campus and move data between systems. What's nice as we move data with API integration is that as data comes out of the CRM, Axiom pulls it out and pushes it into the SIS. At the time we have successful transfer to the SIS, the next step is we're going to take that SIS ID that we created or identified, and we're going to throw it back in that CRM automatically within milliseconds, at most within seconds. So you're joining IDs across systems instantaneously. That means the more that person moves in between those systems, you no longer have to match or identify them in any meaningful way, because we'll have those ID matches across systems. So that is the vision for Elite. So we've got a couple more slides, and I'll actually show you what we're talking about here. The differentiators, we talked about matching. You all are our clients. You're aware of our matching algorithms and what they do for you and how they prevent duplicates. The nice thing about Elite is if you've ever had matching conversations with us in the past, we would tell you, hey, you get 2 match routines that you can run, and that's all we can run. And then you may have asked us for additional information on your possible match screen, and we'd say, well, we can't really adjust that. With Elite, all of that changes. We can adjust our possible match screen and pick values that we want to show, whether that be an email or some other data. And we can also run as many matching algorithms as we would like on the data. So we can have 7 layers of matching routines if needed, if the data is that complex. So that really opens up a lot of possibility in Elite. And then we already talked about the bidirectional integration. We now have capability to pull data from Banner, talk to another system via API, or push out another file that can be absorbed by that system. But we can move data into Banner as we always have, but we can now pull it out as well into, your SIS. I'm always so Banner focused, but we are now SIS agnostic. So. We also have a beefier audit trail. We always had Data Manager that could identify a lot of the detail for us when things went wrong, or if we just weren't sure what happened, or if a duplicate got created. Did Axiom do it? Did an end user do it? We still have all of that as well, plus more. And I'll explain that when we see it, because it has to do with workflow phases, which I'll introduce to you today as well. We also have design time troubleshooting. Before, we built code in Axiom, and we said, okay, go try it out. Now when we're building queries in Axiom to pull data from Banner, to pull data from Salesforce, we're able to run those queries and show returns to you as you're adjusting that query. I'll show you that as well today too. So that's design time troubleshooting. So you don't have to go find out if it's working or not. You can see it right there as you're building it. We also have a lot of team experience. As you all know, we have Axiom's higher ed focus. It always has been between all of us on the staff at this point. We have a good, probably 70, 80 plus years of experience in higher ed, because I had to count Jeff's hours who was added to the team. We also have a concept of reconciliation, and I save that for last because the next slide is going to try to explain that reconciliation for you as well. But reconciliation, since we're talking to things and we're trying to get files out of the out of the picture slowly here. We want to get away from files, and when we're doing that, we're talking directly to systems via queries or APIs. Reconciliation becomes a very critical component of that overall process flow. And what reconciliation does for us, it allows us to define a moving window of time from which to bring records into Axiom. So let's talk about that with an example to help. So this is a select statement that we're using against a Salesforce TargetX system. Excuse me. And this reconciliation and this can be a query against Banner, against Colleague, against any other system that you have on campus. But you're going to have a statement, a select statement for the technical folks, and then your where clause. And what your where clause really is telling us is when do we identify that a record is ready to come out of one system and get pushed into another system, whether that be CRM to SIS or whatever you have on campus. And when we do that, we want to define unique identifiers for those records as well, and that's what the reconciliation keys are. Okay? So we can identify as many unique identifiers as we want, and then we can determine when we're going to pull those records out. And what reconciliation then does, it says, okay, the first time I run, I'm going to pick out every record that falls into my query. First time I run. The next time I run, I'm going to look for records that fall into my query that have been adjusted since the last time I ran. And as you move through time, the time your last run ended becomes the start time for picking up records for the next run, and so forth and so on. So you have this moving window of time that you never actually have to tell Axiom to move. Axiom just automatically moves that and says what records fall into this category that we haven't already processed or have changed since last time we processed. And that's what reconciliation is going to do for us. It's a very critical component to ensuring that we're not pulling every record every time out of every system and processing way more than we need to. We're just processing additions and changes each time. Okay. So now let's talk and, well, let's see exactly what we're talking about for Elite. And I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to refresh it. First thing I'm going to show you is Elite end user as it compares to legacy end user. And then I'll get back into these additional functionality pieces that we talked about. I'm going to stop just for a second before we go into Axiom to talk about technical structure for architecture for those tech folks on the phone. So I apologize if you're an end user, but I know I'm sure people are curious. So Axiom Elite is a web-based front end the way Banner or Colleague has a web-based front end now. Axiom was always a Windows product. It still is. We're still built on .NET Framework. And this website is built on IIS. So your server will have to be 2008 R2 or higher and a minimum of IIS 7 for Axiom Elite. Axiom Elite also has its own database schema or database in the SQL realm. So for our Oracle clients, who most of you are, and who are on Banner, we had a schema in the Oracle database. Elite has its own schema. It will be a separate Oracle user that will be created, so it will be kind of a fresh install at that point. Okay. What that means, and what's really important because of the way we did that, is that when you're ready to transition, Legacy and Elite can run concurrently. So you don't have to say, I'm shutting off Legacy today and everything's moving to Elite at one time. Okay? Well, what you can say is that I can do things via piecemeal. I can move things over as I'm able and as I'm ready. So that if admissions has their bit done, but the financial aid doesn't potentially, you can move a student over without financial aid at that time. So you can move over. It's not an all at once thing, which tends to help, I think, when you're talking about a big transition with data. So that's the technical components. Let's get back to where we are with Axiom. This is the web front end. This is how you log into Axiom. It's the same login capabilities as before. We can integrate with LDAP authentication, or we can store and manage our passwords inside of Axiom as well. I'm sorry, I use this demo system a lot, and it wasn't popped up on the first page. So this is the first page that you will come to when you come into Axiom Elite. This is your new dashboard. Before, it was a small screen with a drop-down box, and you chose your source, and then you worked and you saw what records you had. In Axiom Elite, each tile is a source, so there is no longer a drop-down. Each tile is a source, and then you have buckets within that source. If there is work to be performed within a given source, you will have a hyperlink into that bucket. If there is no work to be performed, there will be no hyperlink. So with flags here, no hyperlink, but there are flagged records over here, so this becomes a hyperlink. The goal here was to make Axiom more intuitive as possible and very easy for our end users. So, and more modern, of course, for those who have been on legacy for a long time. So this is your new dashboard. You'll be able to see all your sources in one easy view and be able to see any work that needs to be performed. Our waiting and verification queue is the same as it was before. This is the queue that you go in to handle your possible match exceptions and your records that stopped. We had flags before. It's the same flag capability. We had hold before. It's the same capability there and the same buckets. So our flags allow you to put an electronic sticky note on a record. Our hold allows us to say, let's wait until there's some information in Banner and Colleague before we load this record. And our on hold allows us to just automatically run those, look for that data, and then push the record once it appears. With ours, you're probably going to be calling Axiom support. Locked replaces records in all queues, so it just indicates what records are locked to individuals so that there is no duplication of work. And processing is informational as well. It will tell you what's actively processing through a given source at the moment that you come into this screen. So let's go into the verifier and see what our end user experience is today in Elite. Now normally this, it did pop up automatically. Awesome. So this is your new possible match screen in Axiom. This is similar to what you would see before, but there is flexibility as to what our header row contains here, and there is flexibility on additional information we show. So the white line in the top is the potential, or is the information that came in from the outside system, whether that be your CRM or an LMS or something else. And then the list below is the potential match record, in this instance from the SIS. So you could have multiple records here. They will be ranked from most likely to least likely, as usual. And then green is that it matched, red is that it did not match. So it's a very easy, quick eye to be able to tell how much is matching and how much is not. When we now click on the record, if you remember in Legacy, you had this information, and then you also potentially had address information to make your match decision. In Elite, we're trying to present you with a lot more information so that you can absolutely make that match determination inside of Elite and not have to go into your SIS or whatever system the data is going to. When we look at this, we can see that we have more information down below, and it tells us quite easily and quickly what has matched and what hasn't. And as I scroll through, the record value is the value that's coming in, and the destination value is the value for where we're sending it. So in our typical implementations, this was Slate or Common App or TargetX, and this was Banner, can be Colleague, Power Campus, PeopleSoft at this point. And what we're showing when we click on the detail of the record is green bolded fields matched exactly between the two. Green non-bolded are close but not an exact match. The reds are not matching at all, and the non-color-coded fields are null on one side or the other. And in Legacy, we had that very confusing button, mark as possible match or mark as new record. We've simplified it here in Elite because I think it did generate some confusion, and it's just save the match or create a new record. So you're making that same determination here with much easier buttons. Save that match, and I'm done as an end user. I can go ahead and submit this record. and move on. But we still have all that fun functionality that we had in Legacy, where we're determining what to update and what not to update in the system of entry, which is usually your SIS. And then we're also connecting direct to validation tables in the system to ensure that your values match and are valid for the given system where the data is going. Okay. So all that same fun is still there, just in a much different view. And then we've made it a little bit easier to see errors. If there was an error, a data element error, you would see it this way, and it would be at the group level, and your group would be expanded. Okay? So now let's look at the record manager, which replaces the data manager in Legacy. This, and every window in Axiom Elite is a smart search, so you can easily put in just a few letters of a name, even if it's just NA, and it will return the appropriate results. Of course. Oh, because NA is not his name. Yes, so then it would turn the appropriate results. You can search by source. You can also choose a particular file if you would like. Or you can search with nothing and just put in some basic criteria and get the record return that you would like. The data manager shows us, as it did in Legacy, all fields in alphabetical listing, the initial value. It just helps to really shine on what has changed. If they're not grayed out, or if they're not grayed out, that means that the value was touched or changed in some way by the process or by an individual. We also had various columns. We had about 3 columns in Legacy to see the data through the system. You can see that there's a lot more here in Elite. We have many different, what we call phases. And what Elite also allows us to do is build phases, workflow phases, so that we can build your workflow as it's needed. Your workflow will dictate what columns appear for the audit trail in the record manager. So let's talk about that, and let me try to pop that up so that we can get a visual on what our workflows really are like. Okay. So we now have workflows. We have workflows, and we can define when we do things. We can easily move our workflows around if it's not quite working right. So there's a lot more flexibility here with Elite. And with our workflow, we can see that these are the pieces of our workflow. Field requirements shows up, I think. Yeah. So then that workflow matches the columns that you see in your data manager. Okay. We also have the ability to roll things back and delete and purge within the record manager as well quite easily. Okay. So with record info, you can actually highlight a record and roll it back and rerun it in a case of an issue. Okay. So we also have the reports, as we always have, the student upload report and the import report, as well as a user report. Okay, so the import report is everything that came into Axiom. The upload report is everything that got sent to the SIS, or the system of record. Okay, so they're similar. We're going to expand that as time goes on. You'll be able to export these to Excel here shortly. So that is our reporting software or options. Okay, so I'm going to hop into our QA environment. That really shows an end user's needs, right? They need this to know that there's records that need to be touched. They need to be able to handle the records in the UI and then potentially look at them through Record Manager. I'm actually going to go in our QA system to show you the funner functionality that we've added and that I have hinted to on those slides. So I'm going to refresh it just because Axiom does time out with the web page, and I opened this when we originally started this webinar. So I'm going to log in here, and we're going to go into QA, and we're going to look at a couple other things that we talked about. So we talked about connections and the ability to have multiple connections in Axiom. This is our connection manager. This is what was built to be able to handle various connections. So our connection managers can be Salesforce connections. This is direct API connectivity to a demo TargetX, which is based on Salesforce that we have used for our testing. And then if you're talking to Oracle, it's going to be a little different, right? You're going to get a little different information on your connection info. What we're doing here is saving the actual connection info, and then we're naming that connection as well. So you can build multiple connections and talk to multiple systems. Now that we've built those connections, one piece of the functionality, that's great. But how do we talk to those connections, right? And how? Sorry, let me pop up this guy. How do we talk to those connections, and how granular does that get? Well, I think that's where connection is really cool in Elite. Because we talked about workflows, right? We talked about different workflows that you can have. And that in these workflows, you can do a lot of things. You can send information to an SIS, and this is a banner example for folks. And you can set up procedures quite easily. But what you're also doing is at a procedure level, in a phase, you're choosing the connection. So that is at a very granular level. That means that I can have a process that allows me to update one system, but then quickly get that ID that we created back into another system. So this is a very granular level of connectivity, which I think is great and provides so much flexibility for things and data movement across campus, and really makes that ability to be a hub there for Elite. So that's Connection Manager. Okay. So now let's talk about global lookup lists, because we talked about the ability to handle global lookups here. Okay. Oh, that's an exception one. That's a small one. Let's do this guy. Okay. So this is a curriculum translation. This is where we have a major coming in a description, but we need to feed it to an appropriate SIS code on the other side. Okay. So this is global lookup lists, and we're able to create global lookup lists very easily in Elite, which is great. So we're able to upload a file. So this can be a CSV file that we just upload, and it will create our table. And then we can replace it completely with another file, or append to what already exists with another file. We can also come in here and quickly change a value if one value has changed. Okay, so that's your global lookups, which I think is really key. And you also give this a name so that you can call and deal with that later down the road as well. Okay, so that's your global lookups. I'm trying to think what else we need to show you. We talked about that. We also have database versioning now, and which allows us to automatically update and give updates to Axiom Elite quite easily and quite quickly within as needed. So before with Legacy, we didn't really have releases and scheduled releases. We want to do that with Elite, and we also want to make update very easy for our clients. So there's ways to do this automatically and run those scripts automatically behind the scenes. So our developers have done a really good job of trying to make things easy for everybody with Elite. Okay, and we still have the same users and user group configurations and the layers of security that we need there. Yeah, we talked about reconciliation. I can show you an actual setup of reconciliation in this source. So this actually has reconciliation established. And then one other thing we'll show you that I need to show you after this. So here's a reconciliation. You have all your available source fields. You can easily add and define additional source fields to make your records unique. And this is fairly similar in all of Axiom, okay, or Axiom Elite. The other thing, this is a global lookup. I'm going to go back down to my contact demo just because I know that one a little better. The other thing I want to show you is the query capability, and then the design time troubleshooting. And then I'm going to open this up for overall questions, okay? So we talked about the ability to talk to systems via API and the ability to design time troubleshoot those queries. So here we have where we're talking to a Salesforce instance. We can filter those objects to find the object that we're looking for. We can then expand any given object and see all the available columns of data that we have in that object. And we're just a little slow today, it looks like. Eventually it will appear. And this can help us define our query that we have on our right side, okay? So we have all these available columns in this contact object, which is the one we want to tackle, and then we can define what we want in our query, and then our where clause is going to be our reconciliation. Our where clause here is for a demo, so it's hard-coded. But what this does is this is real live design time troubleshooting. These are actual query results here from the query that is above us. If I say, you know what, I no longer want last name, and I simply take out last name, you can see it's listed here. And then if I hit this refresh button, that last name is now gone. This is the design time troubleshooting that we have, so that you can get your query and make sure your query is pulling back what you need it to right here in this window. So if we refresh and we add that last name back in, boom, it comes back in. Okay. It's also nice is that we then have our select query of all of our data, and then we map it to fields in Axiom. The really nice piece that I think that's been done here is that when you first build this query, you hit this create missing fields, and it will create all your fields in Axiom for you automatically. So it'll make it easier to build these integrations. Okay, so this is what we're calling I looked and I gave you a very specific example of a Salesforce query that we're doing, but this is the same functionality and the same query window for any database that we would want to pull data out. This could be a banner query. This could be a colleague query. This could be an LMS or some other CRM query if there's API connectivity. Okay, but this is where we're able to do that in Axiom. All right. So those are our big features, the ability to build these queries and talk directly to databases via API, those global lookup lists that we talked about, and that connection manager, which is so, I think, incredibly great for the detail of when you're trying to do things. So when we send to the SIS, right, when we looked at our example earlier, we want to talk to the host. But in the next step, when we update Salesforce, our connection wants to talk to the Salesforce connection, okay? We know the Salesforce connection here. We don't actually choose it. My apologies, because we've defined it and it knows which one to use. And then you have all those available fields again to update on the Salesforce side, and you just map what fields you actually want to go over very easily and very quickly, okay? So that is the bulk of the tour with Axiom Elite. We are about 37 after, so I am happy to open this up for questions. I want to thank you all for being long-term clients and clients that are new as well. I am on chat. I do have a couple of questions on my chat, so I will read those out and answer them for the group. And so feel free to send me any other questions you may have. We want to go back and do a couple slides. My apologies. So I do want to end up with a couple slides. There's a bit more information that we want to show you. So we want to show you that we've put a lot of time, effort, and investment into Axiom Elite. We're committed to making this successful. We have a product roadmap in 2017. I've been here 10 years. We've never had one. We're integrating those API connections. We're adding people. We added support specialists, and we've added director of strategic partners, and that's Jeff Leese. Some of you may have worked with him at TargetX. And the strategic partners is really important for us because we want to do these tighter integrations. And identifying strategic partners allows us to have these direct API integrations and get rid of those files altogether so that people don't have to be downloading them. So that's a big piece of where we're heading towards. We do have a couple shows we're going to here in the future. And if you have questions about Elite or any information about Elite, feel free to contact anybody that you have already contacted or work with, along with myself and Connor Lloyd, who is our inside sales guy. Okay. So I'm going to start reading some questions. The last thing I'll tell you is that with Axiom Elite, for existing clients who are not already on Elite, there is a cost to move to Elite. There's a conversion of your legacy sources to work for Elite, and then there is an increase in annual maintenance and support to cover the Elite license. So you will not be charged a license fee at all for Elite. It's a smaller cost to just get you over to the new product. Okay, so let's go through these questions. Will this presentation be available for us to view offline as well? Yes, I recorded it. I think the WebEx gets it to us in I should have it this afternoon, and I'm going to get it on a site and send an email out to everybody who's been on these webinars that the video is available and how to access it. I do believe you'll also get a link automatically from WebEx, but if that doesn't work, I want to have a backup. Okay? So basically, reconciliation is basically a Delta file on the fly. I'm not really sure what a Delta file is. I don't get the reference, so I will try to answer that specifically to the person who asked it. Was there a way to save the password for the connections in an encrypted format? Yes, it is saved encrypted. It is masked in the UI, so yes. What protection measures have been taken to prevent SQL injection in the designer? That's a great question. Tom Holliday, our lead developer, is actually, I believe, still on this call. Tom, do you mind answering that one? Maybe he's not paying attention. So for the SQL injection, I mean, the designer's accessible, but it's only, Axiom's website is only available on your intranet. It is not available on the World Wide Web. So when we build Elite in IIS, we do recommend the security certificate for the website. But this is not available to just anyone on the web. This is only available to folks on your network. And then I can expand on that once I talk to our lead developer. And I guess he's not on. I guess he's not quite. I thought he was listening. When translating incoming values into SIS values, can two incoming values be referenced to do the translation? Not yet. Right now, our crosswalks are a one-to-many. We are going to upgrade those to be a many-to-many, I hope, by the end of the next quarter. But currently, right now, no, you cannot. Will you be at Illusion Live? And if so, will you be presenting this solution? We have not. We are going to be at eLive. We are booth 218. Please come by and stop by and say hello. We are going to have Elite in our booth. We do not have a presentation. We actually do have a client, and I believe it's Monday or Tuesday morning at 10. American University in Cairo uses CollegeNet and Axiom Legacy. We are right now converting them to Elite. And he submitted a presentation, and he will be presenting on his integration and his process with Axiom. But we are not presenting we don't have an actual time slot, but we will be at the booth ready to show whoever would like. What kind of effort to transition to Elite? Major project or quick win? When will Legacy reach end of life? Great questions. So what kind of effort to transition to Elite? It's not a lot. We have to take your legacy sources. It's not a lot for the client, I guess I should say. A lot of the work's on us. We've got to, we had to do your normal install bits. So we need a DBA or to do our schema portions. We need our server set up. And then we're going to bring all your users into Elite. And then we're going to grab your sources out of Legacy, and we're going to bring them into Elite. And we've got to adjust them to be able to work correctly in Elite. So we have to adjust a lot of the source to get it working in Elite. And that's the piece that we're handling for you. Once we do that, you want to do some testing. You don't have to test everything because none of your business logic changed. We just want to make sure that things are flowing through correctly in the process. We're still going to use, we have built business logic. Those business logic pieces just get transported over to Elite, so there's nothing changes in those to test. So it's really just making sure that the process continues to flow as you expect it. So it shouldn't take too much testing is where I'm trying to get with that. And sorry, I have to go back up and okay. Major project or quick win. So I think there could be a little bit of both. I mean, it's a decent project to get us started as it was with Legacy. But then it's a quick win after that because you can run them concurrently. You can say, all right, I tested this one, that one's ready for Elite, but this one's going to stay in Legacy. So I think it can be, well, I guess it can be quick or slow depending on your resources, right? And when will Legacy reach the end of life? Right now, we are targeting to no longer support Elite 12/31. I'm sorry, to no longer support Legacy. My apologies. 12/31/2018. That is our goal. That's why we want to start getting this information out to our clients. And we want to make that official here shortly. But we want to make sure it's enough time for our schools to do what they need to do from a resources, whether that's people or finances effort. So we want to make sure there's enough time for all of that. How many companies are currently using Elite? No companies, all higher ed institutions. And we have about 175, 180 clients. And we have, let me see. So let's see, we've been in colleague going on year 3 in production. We have banner schools in prod as well. For the past, I would say since June of 2016, potentially earlier, we have no longer installed Legacy for new clients. And I feel like it was sooner than that, but we haven't installed Legacy for a long time, and we are not installing Legacy moving forward. So Elite is on, it's hard to, I can't remember how many are actively using it right now. It's probably 25 to 30 at this point because we have adopted a lot of colleague and Power Campus clients, and all of those clients that we have, those clients all have to be on Elite. So they were using it first, and now we've been transitioning our banner clients over, and this is where we're starting. Do you see Axiom Elite and Elution Ethos as competing integration hubs? That's a great question, and no, I don't. And I'll tell you why. I went to I think it was PA Bug, so Banner User Group. And I stepped into a presentation about Ethos because we want to understand what it's about. And a question was asked by a gentleman in the audience, and he said, well, you're giving me the API and you're giving me Ethos, but I still need to get my data to talk to that API. And the Elution representative said, yeah, you're right. You still need some sort of data tool or ETL tool to get that data into the API to then integrate with Ethos. So I still see our need out there because the data still has to be prepped and sent. Ethos isn't going to be doing that for you. It's going to do some API work, but it's not going to do business logic and things like that. So I do still see the need. The other thing is that part of the reason we built Axiom Elite and part of the reason we're so big on the API integration is because we want to be able to integrate with Ethos. So Axiom it is on our product roadmap, will be able to interact with Ethos via Elution APIs. Hopefully by the end of 2017, it should be done. Okay, so that is part of the API integration, the move away from files. I think actually we're very much in a good position to assist with Ethos and getting data into Ethos for our clients. Are they all on Legacy? Are they all on Elite now or Legacy? So we have a mix. I think that's about our client base. About if they're all on Elite or Legacy. So we're transitioning people. The bulk of our clients, I would say at this point, are still on legacy, but any newer are still are all going to Elite. And I think we're about 25 or 30 on Elite right now, and that's across Power Campus Colleague, Banner, PeopleSoft, and Genzabar. But our legacy clients, they're, some of them are in the process of transitioning, but the bulk of y'all have not transitioned, and that's why we're trying to get some information out to our folks. It says, can you integrate with Slate? Yeah, we can. And we do so today via file output. We can integrate with Slate. We don't have details on API connectivity or if you're able to use API with Slate. So we do it the same way that we always have, where Slate outputs a file, we process it, and then if you need to get information back into Slate, instead of direct API connectivity updating the database, we'll output a file that can then be picked up by Slate and processed into Slate. Okay. Any other questions? That ends the list that I have typed into my chat box. So if anybody has any more questions, now's the time to ask. I hope we identified most of your issues and most of your concerns. Again, the biggest concern, I think, is that there's not this big on-off switch where you move from legacy to Elite. It's a slider switch, and you can go at the rate you want, and you can do as much as you want at one time. Okay? So that's the biggest thing, I think, to remember, and that we're here to help answer your concerns, talk to your IT departments about what's needed. You just reach out to your AX representative, to myself, to Connor, to anyone that you have access to, and we will get you on the right track for the transition. Okay? No other questions have come across. So I want to thank you all very much for attending today and taking the time to see what Elite can do for you. And I will make sure an email gets out to all attendees of this webinar, along with the prior webinar, that today's video is ready and accessible as soon as it is. And that should be by end of day tomorrow at the latest, so that you can share it with other folks on campus who may not have been able to attend. Thank you all, and have a great day.